earliest life, my fondest memories begin with reminders of music. My mom was a pianist. My dad was a vocalist. He incidentally was a Sunday school missionary in the former Northern Presbyterian Church, which was the one that African Americans belonged to in the South. So Dad led singing all the time, and it seems as if our house was always a practice environment because music happened all day long. At the age of 12, a cousin came from college, and he was a tremendous pianist and vocalist. So my mom said, try Melva again, At 6, she wasn't ready, so see what's going on. And the music book, Teaching Little Fingers to Play by John Thompson, was what he brought, and so I started and went all the way through the book, and my cousin said, may I call your mom for a minute? So when my mother came back in, he says, Azalee seems like she's going to do very well, so I'm going to start her in the hymn book today as well, which was in my 11th year. At that time, you could graduate from high school at 11. And with nothing else to do, the piano teacher there just sent me asunder into Bach, Beethoven, and Brahms. And beyond that, my life became a music world. And that's where I am in terms of the church. I have served as choir director in a number of places. The first places were in North Carolina, where I attended the Presbyterian school, Johnson C. Smith University, and I began to be pursued by the churches to be choir director. And even then, I was approaching my senior year in college, and I was only 17 and a half, and so it gave me an opportunity to fill in that time space as I was trying to decide how to merge my newly chosen career as a primary school teacher. So a number of churches asked me to start teaching piano lessons. So from hymnals, choral music, Bach, Beethoven, and Mendelssohn, and Brahms, was a time to start teaching piano lessons. So with all these things going, I think I also began to feel the power of God pushing me, and I would wait and say, now which direction shall I take this? And God never answered. So I fumbled for a long time doing His will. I grew up around family so much and so extensively that my assumption was and still is that life functions around a particular tune or a particular song. And the grandkids began to come along, and they had a different repertoire. And this was interesting because my husband and I realized that we were a little stubborn about what we thought they should know as church-going children and the things that they were hearing on the radio. By this time, music in theological seminaries had transitioned to more of a gospel beat. Gospel music was pretty much taken over, and I really was not prepared for accompanying nor teaching. So I thank God for some moments in the middle of a chapel service at Interdenominational Theological Center. I was conducting one of the 5 gospel songs that I knew, and a student in the choir, contralto, tremendous voice, realized that I was getting lost in terms of conducting, and she simply stepped up to me and sang, "Move out of the way and I will take over." So that excitement at the seminary was, watch this classical musician move out of the way. And but the movement did not take us too far from each other, because I really wanted the seminary students to grow in the area of classical choral music. We had students from Africa and Spanish-speaking cultures, Puerto Rico, and another dimension of musical sound began to take over. And that broadened my perspective, which forced me to help broaden the seminary students' perspective. It was really kind of exciting, because at the helm of this was God's pushing me to say yes when the hymnal committee came along and said, "We want you to be chair of our committee." I think of all the things that I've done in life, if I had to go back and point to anything, I wouldn't say this with my kids being here, because they would say, having me, was ultimately becoming the chair of that committee. And I say ultimately becoming because I was among the ones called early in the process to say they wanted me to be on the committee. I cried as I said yes. So I went into prayer. And I invited Jim in a lot as I prepared to face the gathering of that committee. We were put together by a team from the north and the south, because we were phasing into becoming one church. And the hymnal was called for at the General Assembly as the first evidence of a merger. I think that traveling and having the church meet us at Presbyterian gatherings and meeting us at General Assembly, the closer we got to finishing, we met every year at the General Assembly and had a Presbyterian hymnal discussion. And well attended. I mean, the church was excited. I know, because of the first time. It was the first time. It had been open opportunity for persons to be elected. I don't know whether the other racial ethnics on the committee got into trouble that I did. I kept getting trouble from those who would say, "I still think we need to do a separate black hymnal." And all the other numbers had done it, and I said, we want to be the first to indicate that we're willing for our main hymnal to be as incorporated as it can without having any private things that we to put in. It took us about 4 years to do the main process, and then a year when just the editor and I worked. God just took that committee over, that it was God's job. I just happened to have been one of the pawns.